I told you we were going to strike huge with this one.
Albert beamed as he confirmed the results of the drilling extraction process.
So, is the bet still on?
Donna sighed in mock resignation. She couldn't deny it. They had found a massive vein of Zelthane.
Yes. Unfortunately, I'm not the type to back out of a bet.
She exhaled, shaking her head.
I will learn to dance with you.
Albert grinned victoriously.
Yes, I promise you're going to love it.
For the past 3 years he had been trying, and failing, to convince Donna to take up social dancing, but she had always been too serious, too focused on work. This discovery had finally tipped the scales in his favor. They were 1,000 kilometers away from the main colony in Rigel 1, working at a remote mining facility deployed 6 months prior. The mission? Extract Zelthane, an incredibly versatile material that had revolutionized their colonization efforts. They had stumbled upon it by accident, initially drilling for more conventional resources when their scanners detected an unknown compound. After months of rigorous analysis aboard Rigel Station, they confirmed its astonishing properties. Zelthane boasted an array of exceptional properties. Its superior thermal insulation made it indispensable for habitat construction, ensuring optimal temperature regulation. Its unparalleled malleability allowed 3D printers to shape it with unmatched speed and efficiency. Additionally, its lightweight yet extremely durable nature made it the ideal material for aircraft and spacecraft components, combining strength with agility. With Zelthane, the pace of colonization had skyrocketed. A year after their discovery, finding and extracting as much of it as possible became priority number 1. Albert gazed at the 10 massive storage containers, each filled to the brim with the precious material. He let out an impressed whistle.
Look at that,
he said proudly.
We've never had an extraction rate this good. Feels unreal.
Donna folded her arms, nodding reluctantly. Even she had to admit this was their biggest strike yet. They had known the site was promising, but seeing the raw results firsthand made it real.
All right, we can celebrate back at base,
Donna said, her tone carrying a teasing edge.
And don't worry, this one deserves a proper party.
Albert raised an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. Donna wasn't exactly the partying type.
Wait, are you actually excited for this?
She smirked.
I enjoy a good party from time to time.
Albert chuckled, throwing her a playful salute.
Roger that, Captain. Celebration confirmed.
Over the 4 years they had spent together, Albert's feelings for Donna had become crystal clear, to everyone, including her. But Donna had always kept her focus on the mission, convincing herself that romance had no place in her responsibilities. Yet, something had changed. Without realizing it, she had been falling for him too. As they loaded the last of the containers onto the carrier airship, she made a quiet decision. Once they got back to base, she would finally let love into her life. The radio crackled to life, and Teresa's voice cut through with a tone that immediately set Donna on edge.
Base to Team Delta. Guys, we're getting some weird readings. I think you should return as soon as possible.
Donna's heart rate spiked.
Team Delta to base. What's going on, Teresa?
On the video feed she could see Teresa's face, usually so calm, so composed. But now? There was anxiety in her eyes.
I'm not 100% sure,
Teresa admitted, her voice trembling.
But we might be looking at a Cataclysm event in progress.
A chill ran down Donna's spine. Cataclysm. That word meant one thing. Something was happening on a planetary scale.
I'm running more diagnostics to confirm, but you need to get back here, now.
Donna snapped into action.
Roger. We're leaving immediately.
She turned to Albert.
Change of plans. Stop extraction. Leave the containers. We'll pick them up later.
Albert's expression darkened, all traces of humor gone. He had heard the fear in Teresa's voice, and if someone as cautious as her was this worried, then it was serious.
On it,
he said, already securing the mining equipment. Donna cast a final glance at the rows of storage containers, Zelthane gleaming beneath the reddish sky. It would all be here when they returned. They were the only living beings on the planet. As long as they were alive, the resources were theirs. Donna failed to notice the 1-degree temperature drop displayed on her suit's environmental monitor. Her suit systems kept her body temperature stable, so a single degree meant nothing to her personally. But on an eyeball planet, where temperatures remained constant year-round, a single degree was a warning of something far worse than they could have ever imagined.
300 degrees below zero.
Teresa's voice trembled as she delivered the news, standing before the others in the base's meeting room, the display behind her filled with grim projections and raw data. Silence fell. A heavy, suffocating silence, the kind that only follows the realization of impending doom. They had spent decades analyzing this planet. It had been vetted, studied, deemed viable for colonization. They had never detected anything even remotely close to a cataclysmic event like this. This wasn't supposed to happen. And yet, it was happening. Teresa swallowed hard, forcing herself to continue.
Even inside the base, even with the protection of our spacesuits, we can't survive temperatures below 250 degrees. If this continues,
She hesitated.
we will freeze to death.
Rigel 1 was part of a complex star system, orbiting a large M-type main sequence star. Its inner system consisted of 3 terrestrial planets, with 3 gas giants, each similar in size to Neptune, positioned in the outer system. Over the 4 years they had lived on Rigel 1, they had noticed a repeating pattern. When the planet's orbit brought it into alignment with one of the outer gas giants, the gravitational pull slightly disrupted its trajectory. Each time it resulted in a small temporary drop in temperature, typically no more than 1 degree colder for a few days. This phenomenon happened 3 times per Rigel 1's 120-day orbit, something the team had documented and accounted for. But what they had never considered, what their models had failed to predict, was what would happen when all 3 gas giants aligned at the same time. A full planetary alignment, occurring once every 15 years. And it was happening now. The gravitational pull from the 3 outer planets was dragging Rigel, one slightly out of its stable orbit, just enough to significantly alter its distance from its star. Even though they were still 1 day away from full planetary alignment, the effects were already catastrophic.
In the last 2 hours alone, the temperature outside has dropped by 20 degrees.
Teresa continued, her hands gripping the edge of the console.
And it will only get worse. The shift in orbit will cause an extreme cooling event that could last up to a full year before Rigel 1 stabilizes again.
The horrifying truth settled over them, freezing the team in tense silence. If they didn't act immediately, their Rigel 1 base would become their frozen tomb. The tense silence stretched for a moment longer, but Donna wasn't going to let it paralyze them. There was no time for fear, no time for hesitation. Only action.
All right, here's what we're going to do.
She declared, her voice sharp, commanding.
We move to one of the mining facilities. Any of them have habitats that can sustain us. Even the failed ones might work. We have at least 2 locations where temperatures are still above 70 degrees Celsius.
Her gaze locked onto Teresa.
Teresa, work with Rigel Station and determine which facility is the best candidate.
Teresa nodded immediately, already tapping at her tablet.
We've been running calculations.
She confirmed.
I should have a response from the space station in a matter of minutes.
Good.
Donna acknowledged, then turned to Caleb.
Caleb, prepare a list of everything we need from hydroponics. We require at least 2 months' worth of oxygen and food. I assume Rigel Station can resupply us sooner, but I want redundancy in case we get cut off.
Caleb's brow furrowed.
Teresa already anticipated that.
He admitted.
I've almost finished the list. But there's a problem. Hydroponics needs a full module to remain operational. We can't just take parts of it.
Donna frowned.
How heavy is the module?
Approximately 40 tons.
Caleb said, his voice anxious. Donna's attention shifted immediately to Albert.
Albert, how much weight can the carrier aircraft handle?
Safely, 30 tons. If I push it, I can stretch that to 35, but that's the absolute limit.
Donna paused, processing. 35 tons wouldn't be enough.
The landing spacecraft.
She said suddenly.
It has a cargo hold. How much can it carry?
Albert didn't hesitate.
4 tons.
Donna nodded, piecing it together.
All right, here's the plan. We move anything that can be removed from the hydroponics module to the landing spacecraft. We need to cut the weight of the main module from 40 tons to 25. Strip out anything non-essential, redundant components. Anything we can live without. We'll load the critical components into the landing spacecraft.
Her eyes locked onto Teresa again.
While we work, analyze every variable that could impact survival and keep us updated in real time. You'll stay in the base, oversee the cargo transfer to the carrier aircraft, and lock down the base before you leave. Cold is going to be extreme, and we need to minimize structural damage for when we return.
Teresa gave a sharp nod, already adjusting the calculations on her screen.
How much time do we have until outside temperatures drop below what our spacesuits can handle?
Teresa checked her tablet, fingers moving fast over the data.
Approximately 18 hours and 30 minutes, if the simulations are accurate.
Donna processed the number, then set a hard deadline.
We proceed with a safety margin. Set your timers to 17 hours and 30 minutes. The moment your timer goes off, I want every single one of you to head to the landing spacecraft immediately, regardless of what you're doing. No exceptions. Understood?
Understood.
The team responded in unison. Donna took a deep breath. This wasn't just about surviving for 40 years anymore. Now, it was a matter of surviving the next few hours.
Caleb, lead the way. Let's move.
And just like that, the race against the cold began. Even with the advanced thermal insulation of their spacesuits, they could feel their systems struggling to keep up with the rapidly falling temperatures. To conserve power, they had lowered the internal suit temperature from the usual 20 degrees Celsius down to 5, enough to prevent immediate hypothermia but leaving them constantly cold, their breath fogged up inside their helmets, their bodies working overtime to generate internal heat through constant motion. They were sweating despite the cold, but it was the only way to keep moving. The worst part? They had no choice but to stay in their suits. The sky was changing, shifting from the familiar crimson tones of eternal twilight to an eerie, deepening black. The stars, once faint against the perpetual glow of the atmosphere, now burned brighter, as if an audience had gathered to witness their desperate fight for survival. The humidity from the nearby water had crystallized into thin layers of ice, making every step treacherous. The metallic stairs leading to the landing spacecraft were coated in frost, turning each step into a battle against gravity and slick footing. But they couldn't stop. They were carrying one of the most critical components for their survival, a hydroponics filtration unit necessary to maintain oxygen and food production. It was heavy, a full 100 kilograms on Earth, but here, in Rigel 1's 1.3G gravity, it weighed 130 kilograms. Carrying it was already an enormous challenge. But carrying it up a frozen staircase, that was a nightmare. Donna led the way, gripping the front of the heavy case, while Caleb and Albert supported the back.
One step at a time, on 3, okay?
Donna called out, breath heavy.
Got it.
Caleb and Albert responded in unison. They counted together.
1, 2, 3.
They lifted and climbed, fighting gravity and exhaustion. 5 more steps to go.
1, 2, 3.
Now, all 3 were on the slippery metallic stairs. 4 more steps to go.
1, 2, 3.
Their arms shook, their breath burned. The weight, the cold, the exhaustion, it was relentless. 3 more steps to go.
1, 2, 3.
Donna's voice was breaking under the strain. Caleb and Albert were breathless, their muscles on the verge of collapse. 2 more steps to go. Donna paused, trying to steady herself. Even though they were all in peak physical condition, they had been working for nearly 10 hours straight under extreme stress, limited oxygen, and brutal cold. They were reaching their limits.
1, 2.
Then, disaster struck. The ice had settled on the case itself, forming a thin, invisible layer. Donna's numb fingers slipped from the handle. The filtration unit lurched to the side, throwing their entire balance off. She screamed.
Move away! I can't hold it!
Caleb shouted back instantly.
No, nothing can happen to this case.
They all fought to regain control, pouring their last reserves of strength into keeping it steady. But it was too late. The filtration unit slipped. In a split-second decision, Caleb threw himself underneath it, choosing to sacrifice himself rather than let it break. The impact was brutal. The heavy case smashed against his leg with a sickening crack, a bone-shattering sound. Caleb's agonized scream cut through the freezing air, and then he collapsed into unconsciousness.
Caleb!
Donna and Albert rushed to lift the heavy case off him. It took every ounce of their remaining strength to pull him free. His leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, blood pooling inside his suit, but his vitals remained stable.
To the base, now!
Donna commanded. Carefully, they lifted Caleb's limp body and rushed him back inside. The moment they crossed into the infirmary, Teresa was already waiting, the medical instruments prepped. She and Donna worked quickly, removing Caleb's suit as carefully as possible. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, Donna let out a breath, the tension momentarily easing.
His knee is shattered,
She confirmed.
but his vitals are stable. He's out of immediate danger.
Albert and Teresa exhaled in relief.
We'll need to perform surgery.
Donna continued, already planning.
We can craft a prosthesis. It should restore most of his mobility. But for now, he's going to need rest.
She quickly injected a dose of morphine, ensuring he wouldn't wake up in blinding pain. Then, she turned back to Teresa.
Teresa, get a stretcher. Move him to the aircraft carrier. After that, join us. We still have more supplies to move.
Teresa nodded, knowing there was no time to grieve, no time to slow down. Their time was running out. And if they didn't make it out in time, Caleb wouldn't be the only one fighting for his life. With Caleb unconscious in the aircraft carrier and time running out, Donna wasn't willing to take any more risks. This time, they used ropes to drag the heavy case up the icy stairs, eliminating the danger of lifting it manually. Ironically, the same ice that had nearly killed Caleb now worked in their favor, allowing the unit to slide effortlessly up to the spacecraft door. The incident had shaken them all, and now, with their energy reserves nearly depleted, they couldn't afford any more mistakes. The timer they had set, 17 hours and 30 minutes ago, went off. A sharp beep filled their helmets, the final warning that they were at the limits of what their spacesuits could withstand. Donna turned to Teresa, her voice steady but urgent.
Anything left to be loaded onto the carrier aircraft?
Teresa checked her inventory list, scanning the remaining supplies.
Just minor things. Some extra backup batteries and another portable heating unit.
Donna nodded, then turned to Albert.
Go ahead. Take the hydroponics habitat and fly the aircraft carrier to our new location.
Albert hesitated for only a second before nodding sharply.
Copy that. Be careful, you two.
As Albert climbed into the cockpit of the aircraft carrier, Donna and Teresa wasted no time gathering the last essential supplies. 20 minutes later, they had finally loaded everything into the landing spacecraft. They had been at this for nearly 18 hours straight. Their bodies were exhausted, their muscles aching, but they weren't dead yet. Teresa checked the temperature reading on her suit. 140 degrees Celsius. Almost the limit of what their suits could handle. Donna exhaled, bracing herself, and turned toward the base's control panel. Activating the lockdown protocol, she watched as the lights flickered, dimmed, and then disappeared entirely. The base, their home for the last 4 years, was now a lifeless shell, swallowed by the dark, frozen abyss of Rigel One's collapsing climate.
Donna stood by the door for a moment, looking back one last time at the structure that had once been alive with warmth and purpose. Now, it could be just another casualty of the planet's wrath. As she walked toward the landing spacecraft, Donna instinctively looked up. And what she saw made her breath hitch. The 3 gas giants loomed massive in the sky, now clearly visible to the naked eye. Their swirling storms and colored bands, creating a spectacle of celestial power. They were so close to alignment, a few hours away from completing the perfect gravitational pull that had wrenched their world off balance. A thought crossed her mind, one that she had been avoiding since the crisis began. Could they really survive here? Even if they escaped this catastrophe, even if they built their colony again, would they ever truly be safe on a planet that lived under the constant threat of destruction by forces beyond their control? The thought sat heavy in her chest as she climbed into the landing spacecraft and sealed the hatch behind her. Whatever the future held, they had only one mission right now: survive the next few hours.
Albert, we've just lifted off and are on our way. How are you holding up?
Donna's voice came through the comms, steady and controlled, but beneath it was the weight of exhaustion from the past 18 hours of non-stop effort. Albert's voice responded, clear but slightly strained.
Still, about an hour away from the destination.
He reported.
But something interesting. Temperatures outside are shifting fast. We're slightly below minus 100 degrees and rising.
Teresa, always tracking the numbers, immediately cross-checked their projections.
That lines up with our calculations,
She confirmed.
By the time the planetary alignment reaches its peak, temperatures at the mining facility should bottom out at around minus 150 degrees Celsius.
She glanced over her data again before continuing.
The good news is, we'll be able to counteract the cold using the reactor from the mining driller. That should provide enough power to maintain habitat temperatures around 20 degrees Celsius, warm enough for hydroponics to keep producing oxygen.
Albert let out a mock sigh of disappointment, breaking the tension with his usual brand of humor.
Ah, that's too bad.
Donna raised an eyebrow at his tone.
Too bad.
Yeah,
Albert continued with an exaggerated sigh.
I had the perfect excuse to get really close to the boss for warmth. But of course you had to come in and break the spell, Teresa. Damn you.
A snort of amusement came through the comms. Donna, flattered despite herself, smirked as she responded with her own playful challenge.
Smart ass.
Then after a pause, she leaned into the teasing.
You know what? I'm always up for a good fight. I'll schedule one right after we settle down. It's been a while since I kicked your sorry ass, and honestly, I miss those good times.
Albert laughed, and even through the exhaustion the mood lifted. Just slightly. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, they weren't just colonists fighting for survival. They were people again.
The landing spacecraft touched down first, precisely 20 minutes after departing the base. The carrier aircraft, slower and heavier with its precious hydroponics module, was still an hour away. Donna and Teresa had no time to waste. Survival depended on setting up life support before the temperatures plummeted to deadly levels. Their first task was to redirect power from the driller reactor to the mining habitat's life support systems. From there, they could channel energy to the hydroponics module once it arrived, ensuring the production of oxygen and food. The mining habitat itself was a mere 30 square meters, designed to accommodate only 2 occupants, just enough space for 2 beds and a control terminal. It was not intended for long-term living.
Donna smirked as she inspected the cramped quarters.
Well, looks like someone's about to get really lucky with the sleeping arrangements.
Teresa, too focused on rerouting power, simply rolled her eyes. Inside the habitat, at Teresa's far-sighted insistence, a modest cache of food had been prepared, though it was scarcely enough to sustain 2 people for a couple of days. Given the short journey to the main base, they had not deemed it necessary to provision more. They were already equipped with supplies to last several months. Ample time for the hydroponics module to begin producing the sustenance they would require. Yet, that small reserve served as a poignant reminder of the need to be prepared for any contingency.
Their final choice was a mining facility that was fully operational. The alternative facility, situated in a hotter region, had yielded no xelthane, and its reactor had been deactivated. They dared not risk the time-consuming process of reactivating the nuclear reactor with the clock ticking down so rapidly.
Redirecting the driller reactor's power to the habitat was accomplished in mere minutes. The true challenge lay in deploying the 2 essential cables. The first cable would supply power to the hydroponics module upon its arrival, while the second would deliver filtered oxygen from the hydroponics module to the mining habitat. Thanks to centuries of standardized habitat design, every component was modular and engineered for swift adaptability. Once the hydroponics module landed, all they had to do was connect the 2 cables, and the system would be fully operational.
While the carrier aircraft was en route to meet them, they focused on moving the most delicate components from the landing spacecraft, including live plants, seeds, and biological growth mediums. All of these needed to be safely inside the hydroponics module before the cold reached its peak. The less critical equipment, such as machinery, support structures, and secondary systems, could remain in the spacecraft until the crisis passed. When they first landed, the temperature was a harsh but manageable 50 degrees Celsius. By the time the carrier aircraft arrived, it had already dropped to -100. They had barely an hour left before the mining facility reached its coldest point, a lethal -150 degrees. Albert maneuvered the carrier aircraft with surgical precision, dropping the precious hydroponics module exactly where it needed to be. Donna had seen his piloting skills grow over the years, but even now, he still surprised her. His control over any vehicle he touched had reached a level she once thought impossible. When she had first doubted bringing someone so young and social onto the mission, she had feared distraction, recklessness, even irresponsibility. Now, those doubts had vanished entirely. What remained was a deep appreciation, one she could no longer deny.
Albert exited the aircraft immediately, pushing the medical life support unit carrying the unconscious Caleb. The wheeled system had been designed specifically for hostile outdoor travel, and today it was saving their friend's life. Meanwhile, Donna and Teresa worked quickly, connecting both the power and air supply cables between the habitat module and the hydroponics system. By the time they had triple-checked everything, Albert had already rejoined them. The 3 of them moved like a well-oiled machine, securing every last critical component into the now fully operational habitat. In just 20 minutes, they had successfully transferred all plants and seeds inside the stable 20 degrees Celsius environment, ensuring the future of their oxygen and food supply. Teresa's models had proven accurate. The outside temperature was dangerously close to -150 degrees. Had they been minutes slower, it would have meant certain death for them all. After securing the hydroponics, Donna's first priority was Caleb. She refused to release him from the life support unit until she was absolutely certain the danger had passed. Even though they were inside the mining facility's cabin, none of them removed their spacesuits. They needed to be ready for anything. Teresa's voice, normally calm and analytical, came through the comms with an unmistakable tremble.
10 minutes until maximum orbital distortion. Temperature outside, -145 degrees Celsius.
She was terrified.
She had been so confident in her calculations, but now that they were living it, she felt the weight of the unknown crushing down on her. If she had miscalculated, if her projections were even slightly off, it wouldn't be just their lives lost. It could be the end of the entire Rigel colony.
Donna stepped forward, gently taking Teresa's hands in hers.
Teresa, we're in this together,
she said, her voice firm yet warm.
Don't put all of that on your shoulders. No matter what happens, I couldn't be more proud of you.
Albert, usually the jokester of the group, softened his voice.
Yeah, Teresa, let us carry that with you.
His tone was so uncharacteristically serious that even Donna raised an eyebrow.
I know you've done your best,
He continued.
and I'm 100% sure we're going to survive.
Donna smirked, sensing an opportunity to tease him back.
I've never seen you so serious.
She quipped.
Maybe I should check on your health later?
Albert immediately blushed, but for once he didn't fire back. The tension in the room eased just slightly. The countdown reached 0. The planetary alignment reached its peak. And then the cold slowed. The plunge in temperature that had been so relentless, so unstoppable, began to decelerate. Until finally, it stopped at minus 149 degrees Celsius. 1 tense hour later, the temperature began to rise. Minus 148 degrees. They had survived the cataclysm,